now they're out there running and their disability disappears. He called himself Freebird because now he was free and able to be out there competing and running with everybody else. So after that, Rick and I talked about what we wanted to do the following year, and we decided we wanted to run the Boston Marathon. So we applied to the Boston Athletic Association, and they turned us down. They said, no, you can't run with us because you're different than anybody else. But the Boston Marathon has a wheelchair division, so we applied through them. But they also turned us down, saying, no, you're different than us, you can't run with us. But what they did say is, if you want, you can line up behind us and run. And that's what we did in 1981. We lined up behind the wheelchair athletes and ran. And we ran this marathon in 3 hours and 18 minutes, which beat 85% of all the other runners. Even with that great time, the BAA would not accept us as official entrants again in 1982 and 1983, even though we ran under 3 hours, 2:58 and 2:59. So in 1983, I talked to Will Clooney, who was the executive director of the BAA at the time, and asked him why we couldn't be official entrants. And what he said was, we didn't have any qualifying criteria. And what he meant by that is Boston is the only marathon in the world where you have to run another marathon in a certain time, depending on your age. Well, at the time, Rick was in his 20s, I was in my 40s. They're using Rick's age for us to qualify. And that meant we had to run under 2 hours and 50 minutes. So that fall, we went down to Washington, D.C. to the Marine Marathon, which is called the People's Marathon. And anybody can run in this marathon, and they always draw over 15,000 runners. Well, this marathon we ran in 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 23 seconds. And that qualified both Rick and I for the Boston Marathon. We took our official certificates, submitted them to the BAA, and we've been official entrants ever since. Matter of fact, 1996, the 100th running of the Boston Marathon, Rick and I were honored as Centennial Heroes by the BAA and the sponsor, John Hancock. So we've come a long way, and we've been able to break a lot of barriers along the way. In 1984, Rick and I were down on Cape Cod running the Falmouth Road Race, and Dave McGilfrey, who runs a sports enterprise, and he is now the director of the Boston Marathon, approached me, and he said, Dick, you look like a good triathlete. You have to do triathlons. Well, I looked at Dave and said, only if I can do them with Rick. Well, Dave looked at me as if I was crazy, and he turned around and he walked away. Well, the whole year went by, and we're down doing the Falmouth Road Race again, and Dave come up afterwards. He said, Dick, you're in better shape. You have to do triathlons. Well, I gave him the same answer, only if I can do it with Rick. He said, okay, Dick, once you see what type of equipment that you can get built so you and Rick can compete together. At the time, I did not know how to swim. I hadn't been on a bike since I was 6 years old. And here we are committing ourselves to our first triathlon in 9 months. Now, most people who do their first triathlon, they do what is called a sprint triathlon, which consists of maybe a third of a mile swim, maybe a 9 or 12 mile bike, and maybe a 5K run. Well, the one we picked was a mile swim, a 40-mile bike, and a 10-mile run. And it was a very hilly course, and it was a very hot day. But we ended up finishing this triathlon, again coming in next to last, but not last. And we finished this triathlon, and we felt so good that we now call ourselves triathlon freaks. And we have competed in over 240 triathlons. Now, Rick and I applied to do the Ironman World Championship out in Kona, Hawaii, and they also turned us down. They said, Dick, you're a good athlete. You can compete, but your disabled son has to sit in the sidelines and watch you. And I said, no, we don't do things that way. So we were able to negotiate with them, and Rick is the first disabled person in the world to ever compete and complete the Ironman triathlon. And now, because of his efforts, they have a physically challenged division. On the 30th anniversary of the Hawaiian Ironman Triathlon, there'd only been 25 people inducted into the World Triathlon Hall of Fame. And Rick became number 26, and I became number 27. You know, 30 years ago when Rick asked me to compete in the road race, we never thought we'd be running marathons, doing triathlons. And when we started competing, nobody wanted us in the races, but we wouldn't take no for an answer. We found ways to do it. And our story is spreading all over the world. We got an email from a young lady that was ready to commit suicide, and she saw our DVD, and she's out there running and doing triathlons now. We've had drug addicts, we've had alcoholics that are now clean and out there competing. Last year we got a call from Switzerland, and this soccer team wasn't very good at all, and they used our DVDs, and they won the championship. So they wanted to send a private jet over to pick Rick and I up so we could go to the banquet. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it. We got a call from Barcelona, Spain, and once a year they honor the top male and female athlete. And they wanted us to go over there and get a special award. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. We've had Japan come over and do feature stories on us, and they're ranked #1 over in Japan. We had Taiwan over this last year, and they wanted us to go over there also. And we also got contacted from China, and they wanted us to go over there because what they were going to have is the Walk of China. It was to make awareness of people that are physically challenged. And you know, China's very rich country, but this nonprofit didn't have the money, so they had to postpone it. But those are just some of the things that's happened with our story. At this time, I'd like to show you a short video.